Hey there, this is Maria from English Without Fear. Today I want to talk to you about how long it takes to become an effective English communicator. We teach English as a second language, and there seems to be an increasing demand for good English speakers. And that means job security for us. The president recently proposed that of the legal immigrants allowed into the country, immigrants allowed legally into the country, that a higher percentage of them should be well educated and able to speak English. But what does that mean? So that's what I'm going to talk to you today in this video. Sit back, listen, and think, and let's engage.
English Without Fear, where you can learn to speak English naturally through listening to stories.
Recently, I was in Tampa, Florida, visiting family, and along the highway, I saw several signs, but this one in particular struck a chord. It said, "Learn English in 6 months," and then it gave a phone number. And you know, Florida has lots of Spanish-speaking people, and they want to learn English. But that's very misleading. Can you learn another language in 6 months? And what does that even mean? You know, as a French and English language teacher, I've had people, parents, other adults say, "Oh, you know, I took Spanish for 5 years and I can't say anything." Or, "I've been studying French for 8 years, but," and then they tell me their experience. I think it's far more useful to talk about hours of time spent with the language rather than months or years. And what makes me think this comes from a principle that was introduced by the author Malcolm Gladwell. He writes wonderful books, and I've read about 4 of them, but this principle came from one of his books called Outliers. And the example that has stuck in my head is about the Beatles. They became really good at playing together as a musical group because they had hour upon hour of time together. And Malcolm Gladwell says you really need 10,000 hours of practice at whatever you're doing to become really good, whether it's playing the violin or learning to skate well on ice or ballet or speaking a language. And the Beatles, his example that he used, what they did was before they came to the States and made their huge splash into American culture, they spent 2.5 years playing together in nightclubs in the city of Hamburg in Germany. And nightclubs there usually, apparently, were open from 8 p.m. till 4 in the morning. So if you count up the number of hours, if you figure 8 hours, 5 days a week, give them 2 days off, for 2 whole years and then another 4 months from August 1960 to December 1962 before they came to the States, they had just in Hamburg about 4,800 hours to practice, warm up, and play together. And we don't know how long they played in England before they went to Germany. So the same goes for us. We need a lot of hours. Well, who gets a lot of hours of their first language but babies? So let's talk about fluency and babies. Would you agree with me that by the time a young child turns 4, has his or her 4th birthday, they can speak pretty fluently? I think so. I know several 4-year-olds. And when Graham, my firstborn, was 4, he and I carried on wonderful conversations. I thought 4 was very grown up. Well, how many hours do you suppose that the baby and young child and toddler up to the age of 4 has had. Well, I used to do the math with my middle schoolers when I was teaching them French, and we would just put the math on the board, and we would figure that year 1 awake hours that a baby has is probably 8 hours a day, okay, for 365 days. And that's 8 hours of being able to listen to mommy and daddy talk and siblings and being read to and all the interactions. From year 1 to 2, let's increase it to 10 hours a month, 10 hours a day waking time so they can hear and absorb and pick up the language. And we increase that from age 2 to 3, make it, say, 11 hours. And from age 3 to 4, they need less sleep. So we'll say 12 hours a day, which gives them 12 hours to nap and to sleep. So do you know how many hours that is? Well, it's over 15,000 hours. And I think that's an indication of how long it takes to become really good in another language. It's a natural process, this picking up of a language. So with my middle schoolers in French class, we also added up the number of hours I had with them to give them input, comprehensible input. And the students that I had for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, right before I retired from teaching French in a traditional school, they had with me about 300 hours. That's it for input, comprehensible input. So you better believe it, I used every moment of those 300 hours to make it worthwhile. Well, what about my experience? I've been learning Spanish since last June 15th, 2018. That's when I began to take it seriously. And I started with 1 hour a day, every day, listening to YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, beginning to do a little reading, but mostly that. And I've been able to increase it. So now I'm almost to the full year point, but I've only had about 400 hours of input. What can I do with 400 hours? Well, my comprehension has really gone up. That's good news. But my speaking's a mess. I might be like your 18-month-old toddler, but that's okay because I understand how many hours it takes. So I don't know what you think about that, but it seems to me that this explains why so many people take English classes and unfortunately study grammar, but don't have the input, but can't really speak English. We need to give our learners lots and lots of comprehensible input, mommy talk, daddy talk, just so they can pick up the language the natural way. Well, this has been Maria from English Without Fear. Please, 2 things. Make sure you leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. And if you haven't already subscribed to this YouTube channel, you can do so you won't miss any more videos. And if you're a teacher, a tutor, a coach, a language parent, send me your email and I will add you to my newsletter. My email is maria@englishwithoutfear.com. And in my newsletter, I'll include some of my tips each time I write one, as well as links to other resources. There are some good YouTubes out there of other practitioners like us with other languages who follow this comprehensible input practice. So, this is Maria. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for watching. For questions or comments, here's my email